Have you ever wondered how to design a class in a TTRPG that feels iconic from session one? Well, today on the Wizards of Eem podcast, we're going to talk about designing classes in the Land of Eem and what inspired us.
Now, it all starts with class fantasy. You got to identify the trope or archetype that you're trying to capture. And obviously, in RPGs, that really comes from, people's favorite books, movies, and games in whatever genre you're talking about.
Yeah. What is the kind of character that you would want to be? That's the question. And it can be anything. But when Ben says that trope or that archetype, we're really talking about what are all the elements that come together to create that feeling.
And for us in Land of Eem, we kind of have it easy because we're really drawing from our own books. When you talk about the Bard class, that's all about our character Rickety Stitch in our graphic novel series. We're trying to emulate what he's like in the books and make it so you feel like a bard in the Land of Eem. And when it comes to someone like the gelatinous goo, that led us down a road that was pretty unique because we were like, what in the world is the gelatinous goo? What does he embody? Basically, he's like Samwise Gamgee to Rickety Stitch. He's like the Loyal Chum.
Literally, in the Rickety Stitch book, he's referred to as the Loyal Chum. And he's like the professional sidekick who helps the heroes along on their path. And so those were the flavors. That was the feeling that we were trying to create when playing the class.
So if you're making a barbarian and it just plays the same way as a D&D barbarian, then what's really the point? Why build it? You got to come with a unique perspective.
The Rickety Stitch bard is a little bit different than a Dungeons & Dragons bard or other bards in that it's all about storytelling and having those stories actually activate things that change the world around you. Land of Eem, a common thread with a lot of the classes is that you can change the outcomes of things by changing the environment and changing how things play out. So for Rickety Stitch, that's what he does. That's what he's constantly utilizing storytelling and anecdotes and partnering up with a Loyal Chum to tackle these challenges in a creative way. It mapped very perfectly to what a bard would accomplish in the Land of Eem world, which is where there is dread, a bard may sing a song, lift your spirits, and give you courage.
All right, so we're going to sort of go step by step into how we really think about our classes. And so if you are interested in Land of Eem and possibly using our license, the Land of Eem license, to make your own content for the game, this is a good thing to think about if you're making a class. What we really want to do is front load like all the signature abilities that make the bard, for instance, feel like a bard. Right off the bat, at level 1, they get an ability to narrate the outcome of an action. So instead of physically doing something in the world, they just say it happens. And we felt like that was really central to, like James was saying, the storytelling aspect of the Rickety Stitch bard.
Right. And front loading the flavor of the class and that kind of even the mechanical elements of what gives that class the flavor is really important also because for a new player who wants to explore that class, they would instantly get a sense of how the class would actually play out and how it would work. And they could determine if it was a really good fit for them or not.
And these signature abilities, I mean, we're not afraid to make them like really broad and kind of powerful. So you automatically get that feeling of the class fantasy. It's being fulfilled immediately. I remember back in the day when we would play AD&D 2nd edition, you'd play something like a druid, but you couldn't transform into anything until level 7. So you're walking around for like a year of actual gameplay because it took years and years to gain so much experience without even being able to transform into an animal. That's pure buzzkill.
I experienced it personally. When I made my druid for Death Unchained. You remember?
Yeah. Even something like a paladin where you got to wait till 4th level to get a mount. In Land of Eem, we're like, a knight errant has to start with a mount immediately.
You're a knight errant.
Yeah.
Plus, the Land of Eem is really dangerous. And the only way that you can really be successful and win is by flexing those creative abilities, not trying to always just crunch through the combat. So it's all about that, all about the fantasy, all about the flavor, all about expressing that flavor really early with the abilities themselves. But that doesn't mean that the class needs to be so broad all the time. As the player progresses through the levels and chooses an ability and leaves one behind, it's totally fine and encouraged to narrow what the different abilities actually accomplish.
Higher level abilities, we really they are like more powerful in many cases. Like their ceiling is higher, but their use is more narrow so it feels awesome when it actually happens, but it's probably happening less in a session or however many sessions. It happens once or twice. We were playing in our own campaign. Peter used the unicorn's ability of Dream Quest.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're probably not going to have that come up every single time, but it's pretty powerful to like enter an NPC's dreams and influence them.
And it's really specific. And because there are in Land of Eem 20 abilities to choose from, having some of those abilities later on be really narrow and powerful is fun, because there's a breadth of it. By the time you're level 10, you've got 10 or 11 abilities. And that's a great breadth of things that you can do. But in Land of Eem, you can also go beyond the 10th level. And as you gain experience beyond being 10th level, you can unlock additional abilities that you left behind. So 20 abilities is a challenge, honestly. It's a challenge to come up with 20 specifically unique abilities. We often find ourselves pulling ideas from other classes that make thematic sense as an option from another ability, or slightly tweaking them to make more thematic sense. Because ultimately, we want to make sure that there are no dud abilities. We want it to be as flexible as possible for your particular style of gameplay, so that you can make any kind of bard you want to make, or you can make any kind of loyal chum or knight errant or rascal that you want to make.
Yeah, and it is a challenge to do 20 abilities that are all like stand on their own. They all have their own merits. They're all like enticing to someone to take. We don't want there to ever be a situation where it's like, oh, obviously I'm taking this.
Yeah.
And that's not easy.
Right. Right. And I personally have had the issue where I've had a little bit of paralysis, like playing the Tycoon, which is a Patreon class. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. But the Tycoon Patreon class, I found myself like struggling, like which direction do I want to go with it? Because it was so fresh and new for myself. And then ultimately, like, you know what? I'm going to leave that behind. I'm going to take this because this is a better theme for my character overall. And that's the kind of stuff that can play out when you take that time to get 20 abilities that are interesting.
And that leads us into playtesting. Playtesting is huge when you're designing classes. I don't think you can just design a class without playtesting it and have it be good right off the bat. There's always going to be some tweaking here and there.
Yeah.
And so when we're playtesting, we're always watching how all of these abilities are actually being used. And does it match our vision? Some red flags are that, like we were saying, like, what if nobody's ever picking this one ability? Like, it's always being skipped over. There's always some optimal choice. You always want to avoid that situation. So you might have to tune things differently, expand the capability, the broadness of one ability to make it useful in more situations, or just increase, if there are numbers associated with it, increase the number power.
Yeah. All those little adjustments that are not obvious until you actually play through a few games and get to see how each of the abilities is playing out and how the player themselves is using them. And that said, sometimes the playtest reveals something about the class as a whole. And an example of that was early Dungeoneer playtests that we did for the Dungeoneer class. The class actually leaned into corporate humor quite a bit, leaned into tons of corporate humor, because honestly, its genesis point was the corporate humor from the Rickety Stitch graphic novel series. So
it was originally called Taskmaster.
Right. Right. And we leaned into that, but as we were playing it, we found that really it was like more fun and people were having more engagement associated to this sort of Dungeoneer being like an Indiana Jones type exploring adventurer class.
And there was an expectation for that. There was
an expectation for that wasn't there. And so we made the adjustments during the playtesting. Obviously, we were influenced ourselves with Dungeoneer Adventures, our other book series, to lean into the explorer, the adventurer, the Indiana Jones-ish kind of.
But our early playtests were before Dungeoneer Adventures was a thing. Yeah. So we didn't have our own like archetype to fall back on at that point.
Right. But the archetype, right. but it actually ended up influencing where we took the Dungeoneer adventures. And so that was like a fun, creative process that ultimately resolved in things that Ben and I are super happy with. But it never would have happened without thoroughly playtesting the Taskmaster class.
Yeah. So all this leads us to we want your feedback on our current classes that are on Patreon. So if you're a Patreon member, we've got a survey that you can take.
Yeah, we've got a survey that you can take. It's really all about playtesting for Ben and I too. So the Patreon classes, of which there are several now, there's a survey there. Might want to zoom in.
Yes, zoom.
So we drafted up this really short survey. It's like not very intensive. It's top level stuff, but it gives you a place to communicate and helps us organize all the feedback because we get it from all these different directions. But we figured, a survey might be really helpful for us. And it's specifically asking questions about the Tycoon, the Unicorn, the Wizard, the Witch, and the Inventor class.
Yeah, all of these classes are available on Patreon right now. You can get all of them just for signing up.
So take a look at even if you're not a patron, take a look at the survey. These are the sorts of questions that we're asking to get a sense of like where things are with other playing tables. And you can totally utilize these questions or even give us suggestions of how we could improve this. But if you are a backer on Patreon, we would love if you would fill out this survey and give us feedback on any of the classes that you have played or your players at the table have played, because this is where it happens. And we'll take that feedback and we'll be able to polish the classes to prepare them ultimately for releasing in a new player compendium that we'd like to work on. There's no promises on the timeline for that, but it is something that's in our purview that we're currently actively thinking about.
Some of these classes have been out for over a year now. And we've gotten a little bit of feedback over that year on our Discord. So that's another way that you can gather feedback if you have a Discord. So if you are a budding designer making your own game or you're looking to make Land of Eem compatible content, let us know if this helped you out. Or if you're a member on Patreon, check out the feedback survey. It's in the link in the description below.
And huge thanks to everybody on Discord that's starting games and getting us a lot of feedback already on the classes. We couldn't do this without you, and we've got a lot more in store for the year. So thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye now.